Alright, Litheads, by now I hope you know what's going on. We are coming to you with another review. We are a mile high, we are high on cocaine, and we are drenched in coyote blood. Okay, only one of those is true. This is what we're reviewing today. This is The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. Have you ever heard of this guy? He's a badass. Who wrote about Conan the Cimmerian? It was Robert E. Howard. Might have heard of this guy. He was a friend of good old H.P. Lovecraft. And he wrote on the same magazine called Weird Tales back in the 20s and the 30s. Why did he do that? He wanted to make money. He worked kind of some rough jobs around his town. He lived in the hill country of Texas, mostly central Texas. His hometown, South Plains, was an oil boom town. And what this meant is that a bunch of people came by. They came by just to pump out oil from the earth. They left the place all messy. They increased the crime rate, and he really didn't like it. It influenced his opinion of society, of civilization. And what else did it do? He started boxing, all right? He wrote stories about boxing, and he also wrote stories about someone who's maybe a lot like him, being a sword and sorcery hero, Conan the Cimmerian. Have you heard of him? Have you seen that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Well, let me tell you, Arnold doesn't really fit the man. He's got black hair. He's Irish. He's not German. There's another one by I didn't watch it, but Jason Momoa is Conan. Now that fits too. I mean, Conan is a Cimmerian, which they're descended from the Atlanteans. They came up from barbarism into basically to become the Irish, basically in Howard's reimagining of ancient civilization. Yeah, Howard used to be a real skinny guy, but he didn't want to stay that way, so he got pretty big. He learned how to fight, and yeah, he was a pretty rough and tumble guy. That I'm interested in reading is The Adventures of Solomon Kane. Who's Solomon Kane? Well, he is a Puritan fighter. He goes around with a rapier and a pistol. I got that one backward, just like a German guy singing Whiskey in the Jar, didn't I? But goes around with a rapier and pistol. He believes in the very strict moral code that the Bible gives you, and he usually fights against demons. Now, Conan will do this too. He'll also fight against men, of course. Yeah, it's either demons or nature himself. No, not really. Doesn't really have to fight against himself because he's an idealized kind of guy. Sometimes he fights against temptation with these little ladies, you know. Sometimes they aren't really worthy of him in his own judgment. He's got a sense of a moral compass. Yeah, he's quite interesting in that way. You wouldn't have thought that he'd be very intelligent by thinking of the stereotypes of, oh, he's a barbarian. No, he's dangerous. His mind is a weapon of its own. He knows what he can take on, what he can't. So yeah, he's not the strongest thing ever, but he's got a sword. He knows how to use it, and he's a lot stronger than the civil. One of the more interesting parts about it is that the first story, Conan is actually a king. He's he's already had many of his adventures, and he's the king of Aquilonia, which is a kingdom kind of based on Rome. It's a little bit different, though. And he becomes the king of Aquilonia, the most glorious Hyborian kingdom. Not Hyperborean exactly, but kind of derived from it. Yeah, there's a race of people from the wilderness. They were barbaric, but they eventually became civilized. And this is something that Howard likes to juxtapose within his stories. This is not something Lovecraft did. Lovecraft, his heroes were usually academics, and they'd investigate what was going on in these stories, and often they lose their minds. But Conan, his strength is physical, mental. It's his will too. I've seen a video where It's something called the Riddle of Steel. Now, this goes something like, what is it you can trust in life as a man, as a warrior? And the first answer Conan is given is that the answer is steel itself to the Riddle of Steel. And the second answer he's given by Thulsa Doom, the enemy, evil guy, the necromancer that has brainwashed the king's daughter and taken her as basically a trophy wife. And what he does is there's a woman standing on a cliff, and he looks up to her and says, "Come down, my child." And she comes down, and then Thulsa Doom says, Flesh is the strongest. What can wield a sword but the flesh? And just a word will bring it on down. That is power. And then Thulsa Doom tries to use this power on Conan, and it works for a second, but then Conan decides that, no, I'm not going to. This guy ain't my dad, so he chops Thulsa Doom's head off. And the point is, the video I watched said the real answer to the Riddle of Steel is willpower. That's what it is that Conan has that Thulsa Doom doesn't, that his dad doesn't. Oh yeah, by the way, the sword that he was using was taken by the guy who eventually outnumbered, surrounded, and killed the dad. And what happens to the sword is that Conan slices it in half with his own sword. So you immediately get refutations of both of these answers to the Riddle of Steel within the movie. So if you don't think about it, the question remains unanswered. And I suppose there's another movie to figure it out in. Didn't watch that one, but the Riddle of Steel. If you don't have that answer for Crom, he's going to kick you out of Valhalla. Crom. Who's Crom? Crom is the indifferent god of the Cimmerians. Now, the Cimmerian gods are based on the Irish gods. You don't ever meet another Cimmerian, which is interesting. You never go to Cimmeria. There's only a poem that Robert Howard wrote about it. And it's actually... he wrote it about the hill country. He wrote it about a place called Dark Valley, where he lived in his childhood, and he's remembering Cimmeria. So it's like, this is where Conan came from. This is where Howard came from. Is there a connection here? There probably is. And what do you remember of Cimmeria? It's the place you came from, this place that made you want to become strong, and you wanted to leave, and you never wanted to meet anyone from there again, apparently. Like the book we reviewed last time, Fitzpatrick's War, the Conan stories are pretty interested in actually it's central to them. They're interested in an idea called rigorism. Now that's that if you have a hard life and you constantly have to work for something. You have to strive, you have to use your willpower, you have to use your brain, you have to think about things, you have to plan, you have to compete against other people. That's what makes strong men, all right? Yeah, it's that classic quote, Hard times make strong men. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. And of course, the cycle repeats again. Hard times make strong men, which make good times. And so on. And over again. So that's the idea here. And you can see that your character that embodies rigorism, Conan, every time it's Conan, is pitted against either otherworldly monsters or nature or other men, even if they're barbarians, or civilized men, which you can often see how disgusting, morally degraded and decadent they are. And women too. Happen to them too. In fact, there's only one time in one of the more interesting stories, I forget the name of it, but the woman is named Beowulf, which is interesting, right? That's the egg of the king in Berserk. Where did that come from? What's a very similar story to Conan, Berserk? Where was I? I was talking about the women in this story. There's only one woman who stands out as a good match for Conan, who is rigorous herself, who's a pirate captain, and all the other stories, other than Frost Giant's daughter, they are all usually noble women, young ones who are either enslaved, they ran away, or they're central to the plot somehow. And he's either going to win them over or he's going to say, no, you can go home. Now, another cool thing about this book is that it's not only illustrated on the cover, it's illustrated throughout. These are pretty interesting. I mean, check this out. Conan fighting a demon for a girl. You could say they're fantasies for guys, you know? What do you want to be other than a badass, alright? You want to get the girls and you want to earn it. You want to be the man who other men respect. Well, Conan has to earn his respect, to be honest. Here's the title illustration. Yes, they're all in black and white, but they're all quite very good. I think they could be placed a little better. Now, I don't know if it'd be better if you read the scene before you see the picture, or it'd be better if you you see the picture before or as you read the scene. That's probably the best. But yeah, they aren't always matched up like that. That's something that could be improved if I ever have an illustrator. I'll think about that. Yeah, so this is a review, so there's one way that things would be done better. Now, yeah, this is gonna appeal to your male fantasy, but yeah, as I said, it's got some interesting ideas kind of in the background. That's yeah, as I said, the rigorism versus the civilization. It's got a good example of a hero overcoming challenges. Yeah, and he's totally adventurous. I mean, in every story, he's in a different land. He learns a different language. I don't know if he ever learns how to read. He has a bit of contempt for books. Ironically, right? In the introduction to the Conan movie, the narration, it says, "Welcome to the world of high adventure." And this is what this is. I mean, you get to be introduced to the hero once again, where he's at this point in life. He might be younger, starting out, more brash and reckless, foolhardy in a wonderful way, or he might be a little more tempered. He's a king now, or he's in command, one of his first military commands, and he's going to prove himself once again, or he's going to stay on top once again, however he can, by all the means available to him, by the sword, by the mind, by the tongue, by maybe even his charm with the ladies. Yeah, keeping this one short and sweet. Yeah, they're just different iterations of an ongoing idea. I mean, they get a little bit more formulaic in the middle. Some of them are like that. Yeah, that's kind of what he was doing to make money. But yeah, they're very entertaining stories. They got an interesting idea that you get to explore. Maybe at least in fantasy, you can go boxing, and yeah, we live out in West Texas now, don't we? So explore history in our own lives. Find some new cultures, learn some new languages like Conan does all the time. Every time he shows up in a new land, he finds his way in, he learns the language, and eventually he's going to move on to a new one and have another adventure there. He's not even afraid of death. And he doesn't even believe in an afterlife. He just thinks, oh, Crom will take me in, and he's not much into anything. He's not really even into life that much, so I'm just going to have a good time while I'm here. Yes, so in summary, the Conan stories are very entertaining, and if you think they're there are dummy stories about a barbarian just to entertain people. Well, yeah, that's right, but if you want at least a bit of an interesting perspective on life that's unique, that's not something you get all the time, of maybe the barbarian way of life has something to it, and you almost never are never told this story. That's something you will get with the Conan stories and with Robert E. Howard in general, uh, with Solomon Kane and with his westerns, no doubt. Maybe Solomon Kane will get a review if I end up buying that one. But I'm going on vacation. I'm taking Rob Roy with me, so that's probably what you get when I get back.